This is Dr. David Pomeroy, your host on ADHD Focus. I wanted to remind you that the show is not intended to be a recommendation for diagnosis or treatment of any condition for any specific person. Please consult your mental health professional or doctor managing your ADHD or mental health issues about any diagnosis or treatment-related information that you hear on the show. Refer your ADHD provider to the show if he or she would like more information. Thank you. I'm glad you have joined us today. And today we'll be talking about marginal change, incremental change to help with organization. And my guest is Denise Allan. She's a member of the National Association of Professional Organizers, but also has a certification in that group to be an ADHD specialist, and is one of 25 people in the world who are master trainers in organization. So she has a great deal of experience, and particularly with the population of ADHD folks. Denise, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
And I should mention also that you don't have to be in the Pacific Northwest to benefit from Denise's expertise. She has a newsletter that comes out, is it monthly or weekly?
Monthly.
Monthly newsletter, but also on their Facebook page, Simplify Experts, there are daily tips. So you only have to do one at a time, those incremental changes. Well, Denise knows that I love cycling, and she pointed out that one of the good examples of the incremental change and marginal gains was used by Dave Brailsford, who was coach of the British cycling team. And over 3 years, they made little changes in their aerodynamics, what kind of helmets they had, their nutrition and eating programs, all kinds of little things. And 3 years later, one of their riders won the Tour de France. So little gains, little changes made a big difference. We all don't have to be cyclists to benefit from these things. But Denise, let's talk about how organization shows up kind of in real life. I know people think of organizing a room or, goodness sakes, the garage, which is way too big for most people to think about. But there are other aspects of organization that can hang people up.
Right, absolutely. So, clutters postpone decisions. So, if you can make time to put organization into your life, which will have, tremendous ramifications, especially in the ADHD world, organizing can really help bring down your white noise of your environment and help add to focus. And when you think about when you're creating habits and things, they're results of lots of small decisions over time. And so I'd like you to think about the small decisions in different components of organization and what appeals to you and how you can start making small shifts that really start to add up to huge beneficial changes in your life. If you look at time management, so, time's very fluid for you, you're consistently late. So a small shift may be just wearing a watch instead of always kind of having a cell phone in your pocket and not having that visual, or placing an analog clock in every room you spend time in. So let's create that visual. Some people ask Siri on the iPhone to set an alarm 45 minutes for 45 minutes when you sit down to play your video game. And instead of, kind of losing the sense of the evening, just 45 minutes is enough to really engage or whatever time it is. But if alarms can really be your friend on that.
One of the things on alarms, excuse me for interrupting, when it's something like the video game, the alarm goes off and you're right about to get to the next level or whatever, it's easy to just, swipe the alarm off. And I know of 2 apps that you have to get up and go somewhere to turn it off. One of them is called Freaky Alarm, and the other one I just learned about is Kiwake, Kiwake. And you have to you can set scanning a barcode, taking a picture, and that's the way to turn it off. Well, then when it starts, you have to go take that picture. And maybe that's up by your toothbrush, and now it's time to get to bed. Or wherever that you break the trance of where you're sitting. Now, the fellow with telling me about the Kiwake said if you try to turn it off, then it makes an ambulance siren sound until you actually take the picture, which he forgot to disable it before he went on a trip. Well, the picture's back home, and he's in some foreign country, and this ambulance noise is going on in his car. So you do have to do a little planning on how you're going to use it. But I think that helps break that trance of time, because people with ADD don't have a sense of how much time has gone by and how much time it's going to take to do things.
I had a client who would set multiple alarms before she needed to pick her child up at the school bus. So her child was in kindergarten and would end the day quite early, and she had just kind of become engaged in an activity. So she had her alarm set 5 minutes for 4 times in a row. Because it was a huge personal value that she was never at the school bus late. Yep. And I really admired her for that insight
yes,
and the high value.
Something definitely high value, and having that repeated, not that you put it on pause, but that it comes up again, and finally the 3rd or 4th message, oh yeah, now it's getting serious. Well, I think that the how to get out the door in the morning is a real common problem in terms of just all the things that go into it. And I liked some of the ideas you had in the marginal gain part of your newsletter on having, for instance, a checklist of everything you need to do in the morning that you've decided on, maybe added some things as you forget them and add them to the list, but then you have something easy to look at. Right.
And you can do them. There's those really big, vivid post notes that are like 8.5 by 11. They're quite vivid. They're neon. So it's just until you build the habit to have that on the back of the door, just, maybe there's some extra paperwork that you need to carry, or just not forgetting your lunch. If you can, if you're good about bringing your lunch and can set yourself up for a good high protein, just power punch throughout the day. Just that checklist, it may seem elementary, but, just building that routine and habit, it's a game changer.
Yes. And I
feel better when I'm eating right.
And that having the list reduces the noise in your mind of, am I going to forget this? Or wasn't there something else I was going to take? Is it today I need that? It's just right there, and you don't have to put that extra spinning around to try to remember it.
Right. And the more you can just kind of have some habits within the door, and a lot of times I set this up with a client where we walk the space a lot. It's we come in the front door and we have a bowl right there for keys, and there's and there's a there can be like a drawer that the wallet goes in, or a cell phone charger right there. You just want everything together to make it easy. We also want to use the same spot to drop your mail that comes in, because if one day you drop your mail on the washer coming in the back way, you leave some in the car, you're going to have a lab bill that will bite you and send you to collections because it may be under the car mat, but if you can always put your mail in the same tray coming in the door, That's huge. 23% of the American population pay their bills late because they can't find them.
Really?
So it's huge. So the easier routines we can set up, it's such a time saver and anxiety saver and money saver.
I'm thinking about that and thought, okay, don't have a box that you put the mail in, because you won't do anything until the box is overflowing, by which time the bill you put on the bottom is going to be overdue. So have a relatively small area you put the mail that reminds you, okay, now I have to open it, separate bills. Usually junk can go out before you put things in there. So that, and then setting aside a time every week that you've put on your calendar. This is the time I either pay bills or at least organize them, do something with bills in that 1 hour on a Sunday or whatever time. And
that's a really common like thought process or perspective that people don't think about. But if you are running your household, that's a hat you wear. You are the household manager, and you need 60 minutes to 2 hours a week to run your home efficiently, to deal with the paperwork, to schedule just the furnace cleaning, just some thought process in home maintenance and running your household. So that if we just all waited until we felt like it to pay bills, I certainly don't feel like paying the IRS quarterly, but that can really bite you.
Definitely do it first and the feeling will follow. But if you wait until you feel like it, a lot of things get left behind. Go ahead.
So we had chatted a little bit about also trying to free up some of that paper by maybe just having your utilities move them to online bill paying. So then you're dealing with less paper that's coming in the house, and you can schedule it according to paydays or best times of the month for you to pay those bills. And when it takes a thought process, so as we're talking about marginal gains here, to say, hey, I'm going to shift all my bills to automatic bill pay, it is a very involved process. So maybe you just start with maybe 2 utilities and seeing how it feels and if you like it. So because you're going to need your bank account numbers, you're going to need your statements there in front of you. You're learning a new system to set that up. So instead of maybe engaging with 12 bills that you may have, or 7 bills, just start with 1 or 2. Get in the habit of it. See if it feels good. And maybe you're a person that never buys stamps, or I have clients that have written checks and things, but they've let them sit for 3 weeks because they always forget to buy stamps. They're a client that, shifting on to automatic bill pay will avoid some late fees.
Yes, and one, I was just thinking one of the times to get started on that is that time you set aside to pay the bill. Well, you have the utility bill right there in front of you. That's got the account numbers, the address it has to go to, then your bank website and online bill pay, whatever they call it, add a payee, and you can at least get one of them done. Maybe that's easy enough. You can get 2 of the other bills entered that you have there. So it doesn't have to be, all 7 of these bills and trying to find the numbers and this and that. Do it while you've got the bills right in front of you.
Right. But I guess the caveat here that I would warn is there's often, like, if you head to the doctor and they do some lab work, those lab bills, those are those small bills that just, they're like $6 or $8, but they sit for some time, and those companies send you to collections quite quickly. So even if you've moved to most of your bills online, it's still, you need to go through and make sure that you've handled all your bills, because there's some ones that aren't online that can still kind of bite you if you're not paying attention. Yeah.
And that's, again, something it takes thinking about it at the time, but usually if you go to the same doctors, they use the same lab, you can enter that lab as a payee. You don't have to set up an automatic bill pay, but if it's set up there, you have the bill, go in, put in the amount, bang, it's taken care of. You don't have to make sure you have the return envelope that it came with and find the stamp and all those kinds of things. But it is just little changes, and 3 months later, you don't get sent to collections all of a sudden.
Right. So just these small shifts, calendaring in a time. And it's funny because my whole life, Thursday, growing up on Thursday, my mom would make a better breakfast when I was little because it was clean your room day. And that is kind of shifted, and that habit has stayed, like it's still the day of the week that I change all the linens in the house and wash the towels and things. So, if you can kind of book it to a day. I had a client who Tuesday is her errand day, and she tries to kind of pull all the things instead of making multiple trips all over town throughout the week. It's kind of like, oh, that's the day I go to the dry cleaners and the grocery stores, and it's just and when you can like zone these things together, it's a huge time saver also. Right,
and I like the idea of building in the reward for doing it as both a signal and a reward. You have a more special meal, or maybe that's the day you get to have a different kind of latte, or even put the latte after 3 of the errands are done and not as the place you start. One of the other issues often for people with ADD is the long-term planning. Okay, we're going to go on vacation, but that's a ways away, or have to choose summer camps for kids. Trying to pick that out at the end of May probably isn't going to work because most of them are filled up. So entry in the calendar, February start, and yet there's certainly a lot of logistics to it. What's the best month to do it? Where can you find camps? What can you afford? And one thing many of my patients have found helpful, and something like that, where there's this long list, as it occurs to you, you put it on, and pretty soon you have a list of 25 things, and it's all jumbled up, is something called a focus map, which I looked at one place online with it. Boy, it had lines and circles and all these little weird-looking shapes, and I thought that's way too confusing. Start with pad of paper. In the middle you have a box, and you put in summer camp. And you get 4 boxes around that, and one may say time, which week, and another one which camp, and another one the clothes you'd need, and then you put lines out from each box and just write in the choices of camps or what weeks. Then you can figure, you need to figure out the week before we sort out the camp, because we have to know when it's going to happen. Maybe you get to the clothes one, and there are lines all over the place coming out of that. That becomes its own center box. You don't get to have more than 4 boxes around any one. So it takes the list, it's this random list of things, and organizes it into parts. You can always add another part one place or another as you think of it. And then an extension of that would be to use a different color pen. So your red one, okay, put a number 1 circle at which week. We have to decide that first before we can figure out the camp and go from there. But so it's an organization of thinking and thought that then helps you plan it, as long as you remember to start it in February for the summer camps.
Right. So, I don't know if it would be beneficial to have a kind of a whiteboard for your kids, and just kind of kids' activities are based on a whiteboard, and you use part of that for the map around, your big activities that you're focusing on, like this camp. So that's I find that my clients often find it much more appealing to look at a map like that than a long series of lists. So the productivity guru David Allan, who shares the same last name as I, but not wish I were related, he talks about when you have something in your inbox that is many, many steps, just to put a Post-it on it and maybe write the first few steps, and then you could do one and just cross it off, but you've given yourself the impetus to really start making some more steps, because that can be very, very daunting, just to really look at the huge scope of a project. How do you eat an elephant one bite of it at a time? But that's it's daunting.
Yes, things like that. I think that's what fits into the overwhelm. Someone thinks of all these different parts. I bring up the example over and over of the garage. We're going to clean and organize the garage. And you open the door and think, oh boy, but I don't have 2 weeks to do that.
So I'll tell you a hint of what I do with my clients that want to do a garage. People hate the garage. It's cold, the concrete floor. Nobody wants to spend time out there. And some of the organization can get very micro, very teeny, if you start looking at your nails and screws and different things. So I bring a couple of organizers into a garage. The energy of multiple people, there's a lot of big physical items you have to move out. It's a harder job. And so we may go multiple people for a 4-hour chunk. Our typical session with a client is 3 hours, just because there is moving of larger items. But the energy of multiple people that are supporting you, not fighting with you, but truly supporting you, is a game changer.
And I think that's where sometimes there are things so overwhelming. The desk is this mound of paper, the garage is out there, there are boxes of stuff from one thing or another. That can seem difficult even to figure out where to make the incremental change. And that's where a great investment would be hire an organizer to help get set up in your workflow for bills, clear out some of that area so you don't have the clutter and think, boy, what help is it going to do to set aside half an hour here and there? Put the time into the organization and getting the clutter out of there, then it makes it much easier to look at those incremental changes too.
So, and sometimes I can calm that visual. Let's say your dining room is full of paper piles, your dining room table, and you look at that and you just say, there's huge numbers of huge piles of paper, multiple. This is exhausting. We'll take a dark tablecloth and cover 3/4 of it, so that isn't visually bothering you. It quiets that, and then we're just looking at we're pulling that little pile towards us, and we're just kind of handling that little area. So it's okay to kind of like bring down the clutter blindness of the other part, and just do what's doable. So I've used a hula hoop with a client in space before. This is our focus area. This is what we're doing.
We had talked about a while ago the use of painter's tape, the masking tape, which I thought was great because it doesn't really stick to things, but apportion out whether it's a room, the desk, anything else. And if your goal is to just clear that one section, you have it done, you've accomplished what you set out to do. Even though there's still more to go, it feels you get that reward of, I got done what I set out to do. I thought that's a great idea. I did add one part of that to when I tell people about that. You don't get to put back in the clear area something from the next space just to get it out of there.
Treat that space as sacred,
Yes.
and a clear space is so restful, and it's a nice, it's really helpful for a mind shift change. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You are so much bigger than the stuff. You are so much more important than the stuff. Yeah.
What are one other thing that I thought of in terms of the getting ready in the morning, and it's one thing for adults to have an alarm and look the night before. What are the things I need to take to work? I know one person said, I make sure I put things right in front of the door I have to go out that morning. I'm not going to forget it if I have to trip over it. But kids, it's a different story. Yes, they can tell time, but they don't always make the connection that, yes, at 10 of 8, that's when you have to be ready for the bus. Mm-hmm. But if they have a favorite song or two, you can come up with, okay, by the end of this song, that's when you have to be dressed. So it's a game, and can you beat the end of the song makes it fun, and you're aligning the tasks to whatever it is. And I think probably most listeners, boy, I'm remembering 20-some years ago when my kids were watching Barney, and everybody knows when it's time to clean up, because it's clean up, everybody do your share. I think I probably could sing.
I'm seeing purple.
Yes, purple and green, that other smaller dinosaur that was around. But that's the kind of thing that you associate. That's the activity with this song. Well, if you have this is your getting dressed song, and this is your putting your shoes on song, which often kids separate from getting the shirt and pants on. That's another time management part, so kids can take over that instead of mom always having to remind you to get your shirt on and find your socks and those kinds of things.
And so, and we have different technology that can support that too. You can get that Google sound thing with Alexa. Alexa, play a children's song, and you could just ask her, and then it does it for you. So then you're not finding a cassette or finding the CD that you have to put on. Like, you're just having technology support you, and most songs are about 3 minutes, so this is, we're going to play an out the door song, and that's it. And then Alexa, stop, and you close the door. And so it's great that technology can support us that much.
I would need to have someone come in, find a handy 12-year-old, come in and help me set up Alexa. That's the kind of thing, organization, and yeah, I would just, it would be worth it for me to pay someone. Then when I just say Alexa and it happens, great. But figuring it out, one fellow said, yeah, I can turn the heat down when I'm on a business trip in Japan, and I forgot to do it. I thought, yeah, I'd have the fire department there, or the pipes would freeze or something, because getting those little details in technology, that frustrates me almost more than anything.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much at the end of our time together today, talking about organization and incremental change. And a couple of takeaways I got from it was to have checklists for things you do repeatedly, getting ready in the morning to get yourself out the door. And you can add things as it occurs to you, so that checklist isn't frozen in time. Another one was to set aside, say, errand day. Well, on that day, have a special breakfast or something that's a little reward, and you've put all your errands into one place, consolidated them in that day instead of having them scattered throughout the week. Denise, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I've been talking with Denise Allan, who is a professional organizer here in the Pacific Northwest, but you can access her materials and suggestions at simplifyexperts.com and also on their Facebook page of Simplify Experts. Denise, thanks so much.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Okay, and we'll be signing off now. Thank you so much for listening to ADHD Focus. This is your host, Dr. David Pomeroy, hoping you are well until the next time we talk.